Okay, before we jump in today, just a quick but really important heads up. Everything we're discussing here is for educational and entertainment purposes. It's definitely not medical or legal advice. And remember, things like CBD, CBN, Delta 8, they can interact with medications. That's crucial. Always best to talk to your doctor or a healthcare professional first. And, these statements haven't been evaluated by the FDA. All BioWellnessX research and content are 100% human-crafted by our dedicated team. AI is used solely for video, visuals, and narration. One more thing, a disclosure. Our sources mention BioWellnessX. Just so you know, their products use 100% hemp-derived material, fully compliant with the 2018 Farm Bill's Delta 9 THC rules. Okay, done with the formality.
Welcome to Voices of BioWellnessX with Daniel and Sophie. Today we are undertaking a really critical deep dive. It's into a topic that, well, it touches the very core of new parenthood, navigating postpartum recovery and wellness. And look, we're not talking about the filtered perfect version you might see online. We are digging into the raw, the challenging, the actual reality of the postpartum period.
That's such an essential starting point because the material we looked at, it really doesn't shy away from how tough this stage is. I mean, everyone kind of expects lack of sleep, maybe some hormonal shifts. But these sources, they highlight what often goes unspoken. That feeling of just complete emotional disarray.
Yeah.
That terrifying, wide awake anxiety that hits you at 3 a.m.
Oh, yeah.
And just that constant physical discomfort that can genuinely make you feel like your body isn't even yours anymore, like it's a stranger.
Exactly. That feeling of being, broken or maybe drowning. The sources say it's incredibly common. So our mission today is really to cut through all that noise for you, the listener, especially if you're searching for fast but still thorough, actionable information. We're going to explore this growing conversation around natural alternatives, specifically focusing on how the science suggests CBD and maybe other cannabinoids might fit into that postpartum wellness toolkit.
Right. And we've got quite a stack of sources here. It's complex. On one hand, you have the really crucial clinical realities. Postpartum depression, PPD, postpartum anxiety, PPA, serious stuff. And then on the other hand, a huge, sometimes really overwhelming landscape of cannabinoid products, different compounds, different claims.
It's a lot to sift through.
It is. So we need to unpack the science that's suggested, address the absolutely critical safety concerns, especially for breastfeeding mothers, and then break down the functional differences between all these compounds. So you can understand how they might responsibly support recovery, but only, if cleared by your medical provider. That's key.
Okay, so to start, let's establish that clinical baseline. The source material makes a really vital distinction here. In everyday conversation, people tend to just lump all those difficult postpartum feelings together. But the papers we reviewed, they make it super clear. Up to 80% of new mothers might experience the baby blues. That's, mood swings, feeling weepy, but it usually fades in the first couple of weeks.
Right, it's transient.
Exactly. But postpartum depression, PPD, and postpartum anxiety, PPA, they're fundamentally different. The sources stress these are serious, persistent clinical conditions. They demand proper attention.
And understanding the specific symptoms is, it's a first step. It's critical for self-advocacy, for recognizing when you need professional help. For PPD, the signs described, they go way beyond just feeling tired or a bit down. We're talking about a sadness that's just pervasive. It sticks around. Difficulty bonding with the baby, sometimes feeling numb or indifferent.
That must be terrifying.
It is. And in the most severe cases, the sources mention intrusive suicidal thoughts or thoughts of harming oneself. They emphasize these feelings are debilitating and need immediate, urgent action.
Absolutely. And then there's PPA, postpartum anxiety. This one often kind of flies under the radar, right? Because it doesn't always look like classic depression, but it's just as paralyzing. What are the key signs the sources mention for PPA?
PPA is characterized by severe, just relentless anxiety, that constant worry about the baby's health, their safety, their well-being. It becomes all-consuming. It feels disproportionate to the actual situation. Panic attacks are frequently noted in the source material as well, a really common manifestation.
Wow.
And what's particularly insightful, I thought, was the mention that for some mothers, this period triggers what looks like a first-time experience of social anxiety disorder. Suddenly, simple things like going to a mom's group or even just leaving the house, they feel profoundly overwhelming.
Gosh, that deep sense of isolation combined with this constant gnawing fear.
Yeah.
It must be incredibly taxing. So the sources are really highlighting that this context is crucial before we even talk about remedies.
Yeah.
That untreated mood disorders here, they don't just affect the mother.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
They impact the stability, the security, the well-being of the entire family unit. We have to understand that massive clinical context first before we even discuss potential complementary tools. And underpinning all these mood shifts is the profound physical toll. The reason your body feels like a stranger is because internally it's basically running on a completely rewired, highly stressed system.
Tell us more about that rewired system. It's not just about being tired, is it? It's something deeper, like being constantly activated.
Precisely. You're dealing with significant physical healing, often from what is essentially a major medical event, birth. And you're doing that while experiencing chronic severe sleep deprivation. Your body registers that combination as a major threat. So your central nervous system stays in overdrive. It gets kind of locked in that fight or flight mode. And then compounding that, your circadian rhythm, which governs pretty much every major biological function, it's completely shattered thanks to those unpredictable 2 a.m., 4 a.m., maybe 5 a.m. feedings.
Yeah, it sounds like a recipe for just functional collapse, really.
Yeah.
And this is where the body's own internal balancing system tries to step in, right?
Yeah.
The endocannabinoid system, the ECS.
That's the key player the sources
Right.
point to. Yeah. Think of the ECS as the body's master regulator, like a central thermostat. Its job is to maintain homeostasis balance across really crucial systems: mood, pain perception, immune response, sleep cycles.
All the things that go haywire postpartum.
Exactly. During the immense sustained stress of postpartum recovery, the sleep fragmentation, the sources suggest the ECS is working overtime. It's desperately trying to pull those systems back into alignment.
So if the ECS is kind of like a blown circuit breaker because of all that chronic stress, it makes sense, intuitively at least, that researchers would start looking for molecules that could maybe support or gently nudge that system back towards functioning better.
It does follow logically.
Right.
That foundational breakdown, the ECS, trying and maybe failing to normalize this profoundly abnormal state of sleep deprivation and healing. That's why we then transition to talking about compounds like CBD, because CBD is known to interact directly with that very system. Okay, so this brings us squarely to cannabidiol, or CBD. The sources are always careful to clarify its nature. It is non-psychoactive. That's really important. Unlike THC, CBD doesn't produce that euphoric high. It works more like a modulator. It engages with receptors within the ECS to help promote that sense of systemic balance. And this modulating action is the primary mechanism the sources explore for potential postpartum support.
Okay, let's dig into those suggested benefits then, the ones outlined in the clinical trials and research the sources cite. For mothers struggling primarily with PPA, that anxiety and stress, what's the science suggesting about CBD's role there?
Well, the consensus seems strongest around anxiety and stress reduction. Several studies highlight that CBD interacts indirectly with serotonin receptors in the brain, specifically the 5-HT1A receptor.
Okay, serotonin.
Yeah, and serotonin is a key neurotransmitter, involved in mood regulation, feelings of well-being. So by modulating the system, the suggested effect is a reduction in generalized anxiety, helping to maybe temper those extreme highs of panic and also the relentless layers of despair that can come with postpartum hormonal shifts.
But you mentioned the research is still evolving. So is the main suggested benefit here more about psychological relief, that feeling calmer? Or are the sources hinting at actual measurable biological changes? How do we balance that anecdotal hope with scientific caution?
That's a really important question. It's a delicate balance. The sources suggest that the subjective feeling, that sense of having a calmer nervous system, is actually directly related to these measurable biological changes, particularly in the brain's stress response centers. A calmer nervous system translates to reduced hypervigilance, that constant draining feeling of being on edge.
Which must be exhausting.
Incredibly. So for a new parent, that practical shift is profound. It could mean less time spent stuck in panic mode, and maybe more mental space, more cognitive bandwidth to actually engage with their baby and their environment.
Right. And then there's the big one, the universal postpartum problem, sleep, or lack thereof. We've established sleep deprivation is kind of the root of the physiological chaos. How does CBD potentially address that nightmare of being exhausted but unable to actually rest when you get the chance?
Yeah, it's torture.
The sources suggest CBD doesn't really act like a simple sledgehammer sedative. It's more aimed at improving overall sleep quality by helping to regulate natural sleep patterns. Remember that broken thermostat analogy for the ECS? Sleep is a key mechanism to help reset it. When your nervous system is constantly jacked up, it prevents you from getting into deep restorative sleep, the kind you need for cellular repair, hormone balance, full immune function. So CBD's calming effect on the ECS may allow the user to transition more easily into those deeper, more consistent phases of sleep.
So it's the difference between just passing out from sheer exhaustion versus achieving actual healing rest.
Exactly. That's the goal.
And that foundational improvement in sleep then creates a positive feedback loop, right? Better sleep helps mental health,
Yeah.
helps overall physical wellness.
Precisely. It's a virtuous cycle, ideally. Better sleep supports the immune system. It can help lower cortisol levels. It helps stabilize mood. And furthermore, let's not forget the physical healing aspect. Many mothers deal with postpartum physical discomfort for months.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the aches, the potential incision healing, just the general muscle soreness from constantly carrying, rocking, feeding a baby. What do the sources say about CBD for anti-inflammatory support?
The anti-inflammatory properties of CBD are pretty widely discussed in the sources we looked at. CBD has been shown to modulate the body's inflammatory pathways. So for postpartum mothers, this could translate into relief for that general systemic inflammation caused by healing and stress, but also for specific localized discomfort. The sources note that relief might come from both ingested CBD oils, but also significantly from topical applications.
Ah, like creams and salves.
Exactly. They specifically point out some high-potency topical products were mentioned, like a natural CBD relief cream and a full-spectrum CBD relief salve. The idea is these target sore muscles, postpartum aches, that kind of localized stuff very effectively.
Okay, so we're looking at a molecule that, based on the current research, potentially supports mental stability, promotes restorative sleep, and aids physical healing. Those seem like three really crucial pillars for postpartum recovery.
That summarizes the potential benefits explored in the source material really well. However, and this is a big however, we have to provide that necessary scientific caveat. The papers are explicit about this. While studies, in various international journals and medical publications continue to explore these benefits, the research landscape is still evolving. It's ongoing. They really stress that further research is absolutely needed to fully understand the long-term effects, especially concerning the unique biological and hormonal environment of the postpartum period itself. So it's an area with incredible promise, yes, but one that definitely requires continued scientific rigor. Caution is still warranted.
Okay, now we arrive at probably the most crucial section, one that really cannot be overstated, the safety imperative. Particularly for breastfeeding mothers, the source material emphasizes extreme caution here, because anything you consume orally, potentially, can transfer into breast milk and then be passed on to the baby. For any new parent, this is obviously the paramount concern.
It is the absolute, honest truth. And this is where the conversation has to be grounded in just absolute caution. The bottom line is, we need far more dedicated, large-scale clinical research specifically on CBD use during breastfeeding. The sources we reviewed do not offer definitive proof of safety simply because that robust data, it just isn't there yet.
Right, and that absence of evidence of harm is absolutely not the same as evidence of safety.
Yeah.
Especially when we're talking about a developing infant's nervous system, the sources list some very specific, serious potential concerns that have to be acknowledged, don't they?
They do, because cannabinoids, like CBD and especially THC, are fat-soluble, lipophilic. That means they can accumulate in lipid-rich tissues. That includes breast milk and includes the infant's developing brain. So the concerns mentioned in the source material include potential impacts on the baby's developing nervous system, and referencing studies on cannabis use during pregnancy, potential links, though maybe less established for CBD alone, to things like poor cognitive function or even low birth weight. The core takeaway is crystal clear. The risk of THC transfer, which is known, and the unknown effects of CBD on a developing infant mean intense caution is absolutely required.
Therefore, the crucial directive, the non-negotiable step for anyone even considering this path is a detailed, completely honest conversation with a qualified healthcare provider.
Absolutely non-negotiable. Your doctor, your midwife, whoever is overseeing your care. They must help you weigh the known risks and the significant unknowns against the immediate, potentially debilitating impact of untreated PPA or PPD symptoms. This is a highly individualized medical decision. It requires expert guidance to determine if the potential benefits could possibly outweigh the safety concerns in your specific circumstances, especially, crucially, if you are breastfeeding.
Okay, so if a mother receives medical clearance to explore CBD as a complementary tool, the sources then provide some really strict, not negotiable guidelines.
Yeah.
Like a 4-point checklist for choosing a product responsibly. Purity and transparency basically become fundamental requirements for safety here.
These guidelines are essentially the mother's defense mechanism, especially in what can be a poorly regulated market. First, the product absolutely must be third-party tested.
Okay, what does that actually mean?
It means an independent accredited laboratory, one not affiliated with the brand, has verified the contents of the product. This step ensures that what's listed on the label, specifically the amount of CBD and, crucially, THC, is accurate. And, just as importantly, that the product is free from harmful contaminants, things like heavy metals, pesticides, residual solvents from extraction, things you definitely don't want to pass on.
Right. That testing is the difference between taking a vetted supplement and just conducting an experiment on yourself, basically. Okay, what about managing the psychoactive component, THC?
Second, the product must contain minimal to no THC. This is critical for breastfeeding safety. The sources give a stark warning. THC is fat-soluble. It can stay in your system for up to 6 days, maybe longer with chronic use. If THC transfers to breast milk, it poses a known, albeit maybe small depending on dose, risk to the infant. So new mothers must prioritize products explicitly labeled as THC-free, often CBD isolate, or broad spectrum, with lab reports showing non-detectable THC levels. Full-spectrum products inherently carry more THC risk.
Okay, minimal to no THC. Got it. And the final 2 points seem to focus on the quality of the source itself.
Yes. Third, the products need to come from reputable sources. They certainly should. The whole philosophy should be built around providing comprehensive, easily accessible, publicly available data that meets those crucial safety guidelines. The sources strongly suggest seeking out companies that genuinely prioritize purity and education, not just sales.
And for those of you listening who want to review the kinds of resources and product specifications mentioned in our sources, things that emphasize that third-party lab testing and full ingredient transparency, we encourage you to explore them further by visiting BioWellnessX.com. That level of clarity is just paramount to making an informed and safe choice during this really sensitive period. Okay, shifting gears a bit now. The source material we got provided this incredibly comprehensive, almost overwhelming look at the sheer variety of cannabinoid products out there today. I mean, it's clear the market has just exploded way beyond simple CBD oil. For you, the listener, this complex field can feel, well, like trying to read a chemistry textbook at 3 a.m. while rocking a baby.
That's a perfect analogy. Yeah, it's a lot. So we need to try and categorize this vast list, synthesize it down to the essential functional differences, help you understand maybe which compounds are being marketed towards specific postpartum needs like sleep or focus or anxiety, and crucially, which ones carry the highest risk profile for a new mother based on what we just discussed about safety.
Right. Let's start by addressing the products that really complicate that minimal to no THC mandate we just established, the psychoactive ones, the novel cannabinoids.
Yeah, we have to be transparent that these variations exist and they're prominent in the marketplace. The sources list a significant presence of what are called delta variations, delta 8, delta 9 THC, often in specific doses like 10 milligrams or 25 milligrams per gummy, delta 10, and also newer novel compounds like HHC and THCP. For example, we saw multiple listings for things like high-dose delta 8 gummies, complex blends called delta 9X gummies, which apparently include THCP and CBG. And it also includes high-potency smokable options, too, things labeled THDA, flower, vapes, and even diamonds, which are concentrates. So for a mother prioritizing safety, especially one who is breastfeeding, the critical takeaway here is simple. These compounds are either inherently psychoactive, like delta 9 THC, or they have an elevated risk of converting to psychoactive forms in the body, or their effects aren't fully understood. They carry a significantly higher THC risk than pure CBD isolate or broad-spectrum CBD. They essentially stand in direct opposition to that medical guidance for minimal THC exposure during this period.
Okay, so those are definitely the high caution, probably avoid products for this specific context. Now let's pivot to the ones that seem much more targeted towards functional benefits sleep. Focus often without that primary psychoactive component. The minor cannabinoids and specialized blends. This is where the product formulation gets interesting, right?
It really is. This is where manufacturers get more sophisticated, often utilizing the concept of the entourage effect, the idea that different cannabinoids and terpenes might work synergistically together. Two key minor cannabinoids were repeatedly mentioned in the product lists we saw, CBN and CBG.
Okay, let's start with CBN. What's its suggested role in these blends?
CBN, cannabinol, is specifically associated with sedation and sleep support in the literature and product marketing. It's often formed as THC degrades over time, actually, and it's frequently paired with CBD specifically to enhance sleep efficacy. The source material listed products like Dream Drops, which contained a pretty potent 45 milligram CBD-CBN ratio per serving, and also nighttime dummies that were explicitly labeled THC-free, combining CBD, CBN, and often melatonin as well. The suggested use is strictly for improving sleep, helping you fall asleep, stay asleep, get more restorative rest.
Okay, CBN for sleep. What about CBG? Where does CBG Cannabidiol fit into this wellness picture?
CBG is interesting. It's often called the mother cannabinoid because it's the precursor molecule from which other cannabinoids like CBD and THC are synthesized in the hemp plant. Functionally, CBG is mentioned in contexts related to potential anti-inflammatory properties that might even go beyond CBDs, sometimes specifically targeting the digestive system, and also potentially promoting focus or alertness, paradoxically. For instance, the sources listed focus gummies containing a blend of 75 milligrams CBD and CBG. So while CBN seems clearly targeted at rest, CBG is often positioned for mental clarity during the day or general systemic wellness, maybe helping with that systemic inflammation from postpartum healing.
Interesting. And the sources also reveal that manufacturers aren't just stopping at hemp compounds, are they? They're integrating other, more established wellness additives for even more targeted effects.
Right, this adds another layer of functional precision to the blends. For instance, for managing anxiety without causing drowsiness, we saw the inclusion of L-theanine. That's an amino acid found in green tea, known for its calming properties. It was in products like Feel Good Gummies, which had 25 milligrams of full-spectrum CBD plus L-theanine. For maximum nighttime help, melatonin is a frequent additive, as we mentioned, in things like nighttime capsules and gummies alongside CBD and CBN.
Okay.
And then for relaxation specifically, there were relax gummies listed that included CBD, a low level of THC, so maybe not ideal for breastfeeding moms based on earlier discussion, but also the terpene myrcene. Myrcene is a common terpene found in hops and cannabis, known for its potentially sedative qualities. So these non-cannabinoid additions aim to give the consumer a more tailored, predictable experience for a specific need.
And the method you use to take these also fundamentally changes the experience, doesn't it? Reviewing the various forms listed in the source oils, gummies, creams. How does the absorption actually change?
Oh, it changes significantly. And that impacts the onset time, how quickly you feel effects, and the duration, how long they last, which is vital information for mother trying to manage acute symptoms like sudden anxiety versus needing overnight support. Sublingual administration, that's like the pure CBD oil tincture, involves placing the oil under your tongue and holding it there for 60-90 seconds.
Right.
This allows for quicker absorption directly into the bloodstream via the capillaries there. It bypasses the digestive system initially, so it offers faster relief, maybe within 15-45 minutes. That could be useful for managing a sudden spike in anxiety or acute pain.
Okay, faster onset. What about the edibles and capsules? Things like gummies.
Right. Edibles and capsules like the wellness CBD gummies, soft gels, or nighttime capsules, they're definitely convenient, and the dosage is usually very precise and easy to manage. However, because they have to pass through your digestive system and be metabolized by the liver first, that's called first pass metabolism, the effects take much longer to kick in, often 60 to 90 minutes, sometimes even longer. But the effects might last longer too, so this makes them potentially better suited for sustained relief, like managing chronic systemic inflammation throughout the day or trying to ensure a whole night of more regulated sleep rather than needing immediate panic relief.
Got it. Slower, but maybe longer lasting.
Yeah.
And finally, the topicals, like that natural CBD relief cream mentioned.
Yeah, the topicals are unique because they work differently. They bypass the bloodstream almost entirely, unless they're specifically designed as transdermal patches. Standard creams, salves, lotions, they're designed for localized relief. You apply something like the high-dose salves or creams, one mentioned was 2,500 milligram strength, directly to where it hurts, maybe sore shoulders from nursing, a strained lower back, tight hip muscles from carrying the baby. It provides targeted relief right at that spot, interacting with local cannabinoid receptors in the skin and muscle tissue, generally without causing systemic effects. That's a significant benefit for new parents worried about systemic exposure.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, it's important we connect all this product information back to the actual human experience. The sources did include numerous positive anecdotal reports from mothers who have used some of these types of products responsibly. What were the key areas of relief they reported feeling?
Yeah, the anecdotal evidence, while not clinical proof, of course, does suggest that for some users, these products are meeting the intended functional goals. Mothers reported things like feeling significantly less on edge throughout the day, which speaks directly to that PPA hypervigilance we discussed. They noted fewer anxiety-related sleep problems. Some reported they were finally able to achieve that deeper, more restorative sleep. Overall, many found it easier to cope with the immense, just relentless daily stress of new parenthood. And they also reported managing general physical discomfort from their recovery more effectively, possibly using those topicals or ingestibles. So while it's anecdotal, these reports really illustrate why new mothers are actively seeking out support through modulating the ECS. They're looking for tangible relief. Okay, but we absolutely must circle back now to the source's strongest recommendation, which came through loud and clear in all the materials. CBD should never, ever be viewed as some kind of magic bullet or standalone cure. It is only one potential tool in a much larger, comprehensive self-care toolkit. Postpartum wellness, true wellness, demands a multifaceted approach, one grounded in evidence-based lifestyle changes and professional support.
Right. This moves the conversation beyond just supplementation and into the foundational pillars of actual recovery. Given the sheer chaos of new parenthood, what are the key non-CBD approaches that the sources strongly recommend prioritizing?
Number one, perhaps unsurprisingly, despite how incredibly difficult it is the unwavering prioritization of sleep, as much as humanly possible. The sources just reiterate again and again. Protecting whatever little sleep you can get is absolutely crucial for hormone regulation, mood stability, immune function, everything. Practical tips cited included things like implementing strict strategies, taking shifts with a partner is a classic one,
Yeah.
setting firm boundaries with visitors who might disrupt rest times, or, if feasible, investing in help like a postpartum doula, even for just one night a week, to get a crucial 4 to 6 hour solid block of restorative rest. The point is, a well-rested parent is a safer parent and a more emotionally available parent. It's foundational.
Absolutely. And when it comes to movement, the advice wasn't about rushing back to intense workouts, was it? It was something gentler.
Precisely. The emphasis was squarely on gentle movement. Even just a short, light walk outside can be incredibly beneficial. It helps regulate the circadian rhythm, partly through exposure to natural light. It helps reduce stress hormones like cortisol. And it can naturally ease mild depression symptoms. The message was really clear. The goal is therapeutic movement, not necessarily caloric expenditure or athletic achievement right now. It's about gently reconnecting the mind and the body after the trauma of birth.
That makes sense. And the emotional toll, the isolation that can happen during new motherhood can be absolutely staggering, especially if PPA or PPD are in the mix.
Oh, hugely. That's why community and connection were listed as absolutely essential components of recovery. Connecting with other mothers, whether that's through online forums specifically for postpartum support or local parent groups, it actively combats that sense of isolation. It can also help mitigate that new onset of social anxiety some women experience, just knowing you're not alone. Furthermore, the source material placed really strong emphasis on professional support too, noting that cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT specifically, has robust scientific evidence showing its efficacy in treating both postpartum anxiety and depression disorders. Therapy works.
Right. Seeking help is key. And finally, nutrition. It often feels like an afterthought when you're just trying to survive minute to minute, but it's critical for physical healing, isn't it?
Nutrition is literally the fuel for healing. The directive from the sources was simple: focus on eating real food. Nutrient-dense, minimally processed foods as much as possible. Your body desperately needs this nutritional foundation to heal from delivery, to support breast milk production if you're nursing, and just to sustain your immune system under immense stress. The sources really stress nourishing the body during recovery, not restricting it with diets.
That whole comprehensive picture, sleep, movement, connection, therapy, nutrition, brings us to a really crucial ethical and medical boundary. When should a mother stop viewing CBD as just a potential complement and recognize that she actually needs more intensive conventional medical intervention?
The source material drew a very hard line here, and it's important we echo it. If you, the listener, are experiencing severe anxiety, maybe uncontrollable panic attacks that are disrupting your life, if you're having any suicidal thoughts or thoughts of harming your baby, or if depression symptoms are so severe they actually hinder your ability to function day to day, to bond with your baby, or manage basic self-care, then CBD alone is absolutely not the answer. It cannot handle that level of severity. Postpartum mood disorders are serious clinical conditions with potentially serious risks if not properly treated.
So the critical message, the absolute bottom line here is that CBD should only ever be considered responsibly as a complementary approach.
Absolutely. Only as a potential complement, and only under medical guidance. It is not a replacement for proven traditional treatments when those are needed. The sources, citing established medical publications like the Permanente Journal, emphasize that severe conditions require professional medical attention. That might involve prescription medication, intensive therapy programs, maybe even hospitalization in rare acute cases. And seeking that level of help is a sign of strength. It's responsible parenting. It is not a sign of failure in any way. Okay, so to try and synthesize all this safety information, the product details, the holistic context, the sources did offer a practical sort of 5-step approach approach for how one might integrate CBD into a comprehensive postpartum wellness plan, assuming, and this is the critical assumption, that medical clearance has been explicitly secured first.
Right. And step one is basically the foundation we've been hammering home throughout this whole deep dive.
Step 1. Talk to your healthcare provider first. Can't say it enough. This means being completely honest and transparent about everything. The severity of your symptoms, your anxiety levels, any depressive thoughts, your sleep quality, and also your goals for exploring complementary support. What are you hoping CBD might help with? You need that professional, individualized input before you even think about purchasing a product.
Okay. Once that absolutely necessary clearance is obtained, how does one navigate starting out, especially given the huge variety of products and dosages we analyzed?
Step 2. Start small. Or maybe even start low and go slow. It's pure common sense, really. The sources consistently recommend beginning with a very low dose, something like 5 or maybe 10 milligrams of CBD once or twice a day. The rationale is simple. You have to test your individual reaction and tolerance. Everyone metabolizes things differently. You can always increase the dose slowly, gradually, over days or weeks if needed, and if advised by your provider. This slow, cautious approach is key to responsible use and minimizing any potential unwanted effects.
Okay, start low, go slow. Step 3 involves disciplined self-monitoring, which sounds hard when you're already exhausted.
It is hard, but it's really essential for figuring out if it's actually working for you. Step 3. Track how you feel. Keep a simple log, maybe a note on your phone or a small journal. Document concrete things. Maybe rate your mood on a scale of 1 to 10. How many hours of uninterrupted sleep did you get? Rate your anxiety level. Note any physical symptoms. This objective data, even if imperfect, is crucial. It helps you identify patterns over time. Did things improve after starting? Did increasing the dose help or not? It confirms efficacy or lack thereof and provides really valuable information for your healthcare provider during follow-up chats.
Right, it gives you something concrete to discuss. The next step seems to address the expectation many people have for instant relief, which, based on how the ECS works, probably isn't realistic, is it?
No, generally not. Step 4. Give it time. CBD, as we discussed, works by gently modulating a complex internal regulatory system, the ECS. It's not like taking an aspirin for a headache, where you expect relief in 30 minutes. The full potential benefits, those structural changes in how your body responds to stress, how it regulates sleep, those might take a few weeks of consistent use to become really noticeable. So patience and consistency are paramount here. Don't give up after just 2 days if you don't feel dramatically different.
Okay, patience is key. And step 5 brings us back to the support network, reinforcing the fact that this isn't a solo journey.
Step 5. Stay connected to support. Exactly. Echoing what we said in the holistic section, this whole postpartum journey cannot and should not be navigated in isolation. Maintain those open lines of communication with your doctor or midwife, rely on the support of your partner, your family, your friends, whoever your village is, and stay engaged with those support groups or your therapist if you have one. Support is absolutely structural to recovery, whether CBD is part of the picture or not.
Okay, so that really brings us to the bottom line, doesn't it? The research is definitely evolving, it's moving quickly, but responsible, quality-focused use of CBD, only under stringent medical guidance, may offer some significant relief for some of those hallmark postpartum symptoms, that relentless anxiety, the insomnia, the physical discomfort. The final overarching message from the sources seems to be perhaps the most important. Your baby needs you to be healthy, needs you to be supported and as balanced as possible during this incredibly demanding life transition.
And achieving that health requires making informed, educated choices, especially when considering supplements in this period. We really have to strongly recommend that mothers prioritize quality over convenience or price, always. For those prioritizing purity and safety, which should be everyone in this context, you absolutely must look for brands that offer that complete transparency. The readily available third-party lab testing results. That's what makes it easier to feel confident in the product you might be choosing to consume during this really critical period.
And just one more reminder for our listener. Those resources and the kind of information emphasizing purity and education, the places where you can review those crucial lab reports and ingredient lists for yourself, you can find examples and learn more at BioWellnessX.com.
You know, we've spent a lot of time today defining the intense physical and mental demands of the postpartum period, the chronic sleep deprivation, the nervous system just constantly in overdrive, and how these factors seem to fundamentally disrupt the body's deepest regulatory systems, particularly the endocannabinoid system. So the question maybe for you, the listener, to consider as we wrap up is this. Given that the ECS is designed, fundamentally, to regulate stress and maintain balance. To what extent does modern life itself, with its chronic stress, the endless digital connectivity, the societal sleep fragmentation that affects almost everyone, to what extent does that fundamentally throw everyone's ECS out of balance, not just new mothers? Perhaps that persistent low-grade or high-grade disruption is one reason why compounds that interact with the ECS, like CBD, are becoming so widely explored across the broader wellness landscape now, as maybe a potential path back towards achieving some kind of fundamental systemic balance in a world that constantly pushes us out of it.
That is a fascinating thought to end on, suggesting maybe we're all running on a slightly shattered nervous system these days.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. Something to think about.
Indeed. Thanks for listening to Voices of BioWellnessX with Daniel and Sophie.